My background is actually industrial design. In Australia, it's not a massive profession, but in a nutshell, it's basically design for manufacture. So with this project, the main kind of areas that I was looking at was the collection vehicle and the bins in which the waste needs to go into. And a big part of that is to keep the microbes down, or the level of microbes down. We made a decision early on that daily collection was going to be on the cards, and probably a big part of this process. There are things that we're looking into to slow microbe growth down and things like that, but at least in the initial stages, we've basically said daily collection is going to be part of the process. So with that, we've then gone and said, well, what technologies are available and what can we do with our design to actually make that a value add and actually help the process along. So when we collect from our waste producers, one of the things we're doing is we're basically saying, you're a waste producer, you fit into X stream, and we basically give you a profile. With that profile, we know what bins you've got, and those bins will be barcoded or at least identified in a way. Once we've got that information, we can then say whether that bin was actually collected the day before, and if it wasn't, then we can assume that that waste wasn't collected or at least scanned the day before, which means that can go into a further bin, which gets discarded rather than the microbes building up into the process. Now with that has also come the ability to design a custom vehicle, which we'll get right up in a second to talk about SUPERIORPAK and their involvement. We've also looked at different technologies that we can incorporate. Some of those are just a digital system in itself that flags, hey, this bin has been there for 2 days. Barcoded or RFID chips in the actual bins so that each bin has an identifier. One of the really interesting things that we've looked at is plastic additives, which I'll go into later in this presentation, but there are additives to the plastic that go into the colour that you actually put into the plastic that basically kill any bacteria. And on that level, they claim, and we're testing that it kills microbes as well. Now, in a sense, that's not going to prevent microbes from growing within the waste, but if you're cleaning your bins, or we clean the bins actually, and there's any residue left on those bins, then we can be sure that the bacteria is actually taken care of. The other really good thing about being a plastic additive rather than a coating is any scratches, it's in the plastic, so it's always going to be active. We've also got a bin washing station that we're building into every vehicle, which means we're actually providing a service in cleaning the bins when they go back. From our perspective, we want control that those bins are kept clean, but from a waste collection perspective, we're also adding value to collecting that waste. And then just another technology that we're looking at is cameras and systems that can basically visually recognise anything that's in those waste streams that shouldn't be there. We can then identify what source that's coming from and tap them on the shoulder and say, hey guys, pick up your game. So without further ado, basically Rod works with SUPERIORPAK, who I think Norm mentioned do a lot of waste vehicles. And if you want to go just there, sure. Yep. This was the initial kind of drawing from our patent that we went to SUPERIORPAK with, and the development has started from there.
Thanks, Norm, for the opportunity to be here. This innovation is great for us. We've been in business roughly 25 years. We started with 10 or 15 employees. We now have over 350, so innovation's been a big part of our business. When you look at our aggregator group, we do over 20 vehicles a day. So the rest of the group's worked out how to deal with half a units. They've turned it into 20 a day. So we're a big business. The aftermarket part of our business is important. Waste industry, vehicle breaks down and you don't collect that bin, that's a real problem, and similarly for the food industry also. So we have a very strong aftermarket operation. Also, We've worked a lot with stainless and food waste in the past, more so from an organic and that dirty word composting environment. Clearly things are changing. Our innovation is also focused on the circular economy. Another exciting part of this project for us, it aligns very much with what we've been trying to do there, and managing energy and closing the loop on our waste streams, minimising landfill, etc. So some really exciting times for us and some exciting opportunities. And one of the good things we've found with our innovation historically is that this particular concept is not too different to our current technology. So we've always found the most easiest and commercial innovation for us is something that isn't too distant from what we do today. So we've been working with these concepts for some years now, certainly not with regard to food waste and the reprocessing thereof, so that's a new element for us. But we're confident with what you've spoken about in the past, Norm, and the designs and the concepts, as per the previous slide. We can do this, and we can do that efficiently and effectively and bring that to market sooner than later. One of the good examples in that innovation is over the last 20 years, the cost of collecting a domestic bin today is about 2/3 of the price it was 20 years ago. So you can appreciate with material cost increases and labour cost increases, that's been a fair effort. So we feel we're up for the job here as well. Thank you.
So SUPERIORPAK are also in the process of building a prototype. So the prototype will be handling basically 3 chambers, which will give us 3 streams, and basically it'll go out twice to achieve the 6 streams. Obviously what we learn from that vehicle will be translated into the final designs.
Yeah, there's a big element of the cost of the transportation is certainly the logistics. So we'll determine frequency of collections, and then that will drive the numbers of chambers and the capacity of each of those chambers.
Okay, now on the bin design, I just thought I'd touch on this. So the double lid bin design was a big part of our patent, but also managing what goes into the bins. So the waste providers can control what goes in the bins, obviously, on their premises. As soon as it's out in the street, we need to ensure that nobody else can get into those bins, but at the same time, it's not going to be an onerous task for the collection vehicle to open the bins up. So we've got this double lid design where the top lid is just a simple key and lock that the waste provider has, but the second lid, which you can see just over here, basically we're looking at either an engagement with the waste collection vehicle or a magnetic latch controlled by an electromagnet, which basically opens when the vehicle collects it. And the plastic additive I was talking about before, basically we've got a supplier we're talking to. It basically kills any bacteria it comes into contact with. It's embedded in the material itself. The really interesting thing is it's FDA approved for human consumption, so you've got no problem with poultry feed. But the actual active ingredient is nanosilver. So it's not chemicals, it's not anything nasty either. And yeah, it's perfect for bins that are constantly washed and any residual waste. And just as a side note, the other thing that we're always looking for is new technologies, new things that we can apply to the process or part of the process that basically add value. Thank you.
Because when I had the very good fortune to visit SUPERIORPAK's factory up in Bundaberg, they had 3, I think, electric trucks at the time, electric vehicles. We probably should have put some photos up.
Yeah.
It was just mind-blowing. They were lined up there, and just picture, and this is happening. It's not like science fiction. This is happening. They have the electric trucks. So our plan is to go down the electric truck route once we get this prototype out of the way, because at the end of the day, these trucks are silent. They're picking up usually after hours. So there's a benefit to the community to have that picked up after hours. And we think the routes and the things they're going to be doing will be well under 200 kilometres a day. All fits, everything fits for this electric truck thing. So that'll be, I think very quickly we'll be looking at doing that. And what you guys are doing up there in that, because I didn't tell you at the time, but I've been around a few places in the world to try and find anyone who was doing it. You guys are doing it You're way ahead of anyone else that I've seen.
Yeah, and when we talk about the circular economy, clearly energy is a big part of that.
Yeah.
So, and waste collection too, energy is a big component of that. So, we've taken the approach that if we can electrify our vehicles, then a lot of our clients can turn their waste into energy that can be then used to rerun their vehicles. So that's a big part of that whole circular economy.